So, good afternoon once again, Assalamu alaikum and namaste to people who have joined in from everywhere. Thank you very much that you take the time out to listen to us. Thank you very much for your feedback and comments. And I hope that we come up to your expectations. We try to, but still do keep us updated, and that would help us a lot in preparing the material. Most of the time, I personally have looked in, and the topics that you want me to discuss are sometimes I can take it in. Otherwise, if I'm working in a sequence, then it goes in that sequence, and maybe your topic will come in later on. All right. Now, to start with the teaching of poetry. How do you teach poetry? I think the first thing should be, do you really enjoy reading poetry and you enjoy teaching poetry? Because I think poetry takes in a lot of preparation. There's a lot of things involved in teaching poetry. And once we teach poetry, we teach a lot of other things like intonation, sound, pronunciation. So it comes not alone, but in hordes all put together. So today I want to ask you if you can recall a childhood poem. All right, first let me get this clarified that the word is poem and poem. The latest pronunciation or the American pronunciation is poem, and otherwise we people of my era say poem because we were taught the British way, and poem is the American pronunciation. So it's entirely up to you, and I think all over we do accept both the pronunciations, poem and poem, but the latest or the trending one is poem. So stick to poem, I think that would be better. All right, anybody who can recall a childhood poetry which still comes to mind? Okay, that's one of the favorite poetries we've had. Abu Ben Adam.
Daffodils.
I love daffodils myself, and I can still remember what I had learned long time ago. I still love daffodils, and what I can remember of daffodils is fair daffodils we weep to see thee haste away so soon. As yet the rising sun has not attained its noon. This was when I was in class 5. I learned it. I can remember it, though I couldn't recall the title of the poem lately. Then I had to look it up. Daffodils is my favorite. Okay, let's see now. Yes. So Shanaz, we have something in common. Abu Ben Adam, now see, you've got two poems here, and they both have a different meaning to it and a different kind of poetry, both of them are, which later on in the webinar, I'll explain to you the difference. Okay. I think we should start now. We have enough participants. Any suggestions on how would you teach poetry? How do you teach? Most of you must be teaching poetry. How do you teach poetry? Unmute your mic so that we can have a conversation, a live conversation, if you please. Do you enjoy teaching poetry or poems? Or do you think it's an ordeal? You can,
ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, some network problem in your side. Your voice is not clear. Maybe. I can't understand.
Please look into your connection. I am asking that how do you teach poetry or a poem? Just a minute, I'll check my side, you check yours. It is important to know the context of verses in senior class. Is it any clear now? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Now clear.
Okay. So I've been
Okay.
talking about, and please you can unmute and answer. How do you teach a poem? Do you enjoy teaching poetry or poem? Or is it an ordeal for you to teach poetry?
Ma'am, repeat again your question.
How do you teach poem or poetry? Do you enjoy teaching poetry or is it an ordeal? Ordeal means मुश्किल लगता है आपको पढ़ाना poetry?
No, ma'am. Poetry isn't poetry मुश्किल तो नहीं है पढ़ाना मैम.
जी.
पोइट्री को अगर हम एंजॉयमेंट के साथ अगर स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ाएं तो इजी है ये पढ़ाना.
Okay. And do you think आप पढ़ाती इस तरह से है कि your child can recall it at 60 years also?
मैम उसको स्टूडेंट्स को इस तरह से मीन्स के एक एंजॉयमेंट के तरह या फन की तरह पढ़ाया जाए पोइट्री को ताकि वो पिक कर सकें इजीली. क्योंकि जो है पोइट्री एक खुश्क होती है मे बी इन माय साइड, तो वो बच्चे जो है इजीली समझ नहीं पाते, तो उनको इस तरह पढ़ाया जाए कि उनको भी समझ आ जाए और वो इंटरेस्टेड हो जाए कि हमें उनको पोइट्री जो है सुनने में इंटरेस्ट हो.
Yes, yes. And that is where some areas that we have to keep in mind while teaching poetry is like our pronunciation, intonation.
यस मैम. उर्दू में जो है उर्दू पोइट्री में जो हमें प्रोनाउंसिएशन का ज्यादा जो है ख्याल रखना चाहिए. उर्दू जो है उनके जो वर्ड्स हैं और इंग्लिश में भी खास तौर पे.
जी जी, that's true. और उससे आपका मीनिंग ज्यादा वाज़ेह होता है.
ये दो पार्टिसिपेंट है चैट पे.
जी मैम.
है, should I do something about it?
चैट पे उन्होंने कमेंट किया.
Okay, Shanaz, I enjoy teaching poetry, very good. Though it's a challenge, I'm sure it is. And
Ria.
Zia?
Ria. R-I-Y.
Ria. What is?
By illustration, she teach poetry by illustration.
Oh, very good. That's the latest technique to teach poetry through illustrations. Ria, I'm sure you have a lot of great ideas about that. Today, I'm going to show you how I teach poetry. And let's see if we can match it with Ria. Ria, where are you from? Hello, Ria, can you hear me? Oh, I'm glad. Can you hear me, Ria? You have a beautiful name. All right. Now, what I'm going to present to you right now, the next slide, is the poetry itself that I have picked up. Because I feel it will demonstrate a lot of areas that I want to introduce to you, or we can talk about it, discuss it. So the poetry I picked up is by R.L. Stevenson, and it's the Railway Carriage. And in the Pakistani curriculum, we have that poetry in class 9th. So that is why I thought it would be beneficial for you who are teaching the higher or senior classes. All right, let's look at the poetry. Now, before you start reading the poetry, it would be good if you practice it. And in case if you haven't, just be careful about your breath. It is your breath that gives the, rhythm and rhyme to the poetry. So once you can breathe well and you know when to take a deep breath, when to take a short breath, that would help you a lot. Okay, the railway station, from a railway station. So when we talk about railway station, it brings a lot to mind already. Okay, let's see. Faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, and charging along like troops in a battle, all through the meadow, the horses and cattle. All of the sides of the hill and the plain fly as thick as driving rain. And ever again, in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. Here is a child who clamors and scrambles, all by himself and gathering brambles. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes, and there is a green for stringing the daisies. Here is a cart run away in the road, lumping along with man and load. And here is a mill, and there is a river, each a glimpse and gone forever. See, it is the intonation in your voice. It is taking the breath at the right times that you can make your poetry more appreciation. And they will understand. And the minute you raise your voice and you lower your voice, like here is a mill and there is a river, each a glimpse and gone forever. So drop your voice when you're coming to the end of sentences and drop your voice at the end. It will have more effect on your listener. So when we're talking about poetry, we are talking about the listening skill as well. And when we talk about the listening skill in poetry, we will also talk about the speaking skill, the pronunciation skill of poetry. So see how a language is interlinked, how all the four parts are interlinked and how we work with them together, right? Okay. All right. There is intonation, there is rhythm, there's clarity, clarity of pronunciation, clarity of thought and idea, and making it interesting. What is poetry? Today we will talk about what is poetry. Any suggestions, please, you're welcome. I'm waiting for a second or two. You can unmute your mics. What do you think is poetry? Poetry is an interplay of words and rhythm. Would somebody like to read this? Poetry is an interplay of words and rhythm.
Somebody says delicate
Sensitivity towards feeling.
ये poetry के मायने जो आपने सवाल पूछा था, what is poetry? उसको जवाब आया.
Delicate. Okay, who is she? Shanaz. Shanaz, I'm glad you're participating a lot and I like your idea. And it is true in a lot of ways that it is sensitive, it is delicate, yes. And you do display your feelings in it. So poetry is an interplay of words and rhythm. Please, any of you would like to read, just unmute your mic and start reading. Words are put together with vivid images and ideas. This you can see in the railway carriage. Look at all the vivid images that you come across in your journey. One of the reasons we should, I think, work on the railway carriage is because this is a very common composition topic that class 9 gets to write a composition on a journey or a vacation or something. So maybe it serves a lot of purposes, the railway carriage. So words are put together with vivid images and ideas. The difference between poetry and poem. I want suggestions on this. I want to know what you think. Do you think it's the same thing, or do you think they're two different things? Think and unmute your mic. Poetry and poem. Use both the pronunciations. One day you will come to the latest pronunciation. Poem and poetry are both important forms of literature. You need to understand that it is a part of literature. What? छोटा कर. Yeah, thank you. Poem and poetry are both important forms of literature. Each manages to bring a writer's creativity to life. These two forms of writing take words and form them into a masterpiece that will last forever. A lot of masterpieces you have named that you can still remember. And so that's what poetry and poem is all about. It is an important form of literature. Each manages to bring a writer's creativity to life. These two forms of writing take words and form them into a masterpiece that will last a lifetime. Poem is a composition or literary connection or conception, and poetry in form of artistic expression. So poem is a composition or literary conception, and poetry in form of artistic expression. Poem contributes to pleasure, and poetry is appealing enjoyment. One is pleasure, the other is enjoyment. It is style and form of art. It is style and form of art. So Shanaz, you're right. It is a sensitive part of literature. Why? Why poetry, and why do we have to teach poetry in our syllabus? Poetry develops the power of imagination. Would somebody like to read?
This reality quality.
Poetry develops
Very good.
the power of imagination.
Right. Thank you. The next one. Can you read the whole thing, please?
Makes learning an enjoyable activity.
Makes learning an enjoyable activity. Thank you, Farzana. Next. Anybody else who wants to read, please?
Poetry develops our aesthetic sense.
Very good. Poetry develops our aesthetic sense. Again, what would you mean by aesthetic sense? What would
Elevated or appealing or aesthetic.
aesthetic is appealing, okay? What appeals you?
Morality, beauty.
Sense and sensibility,
Okay,
beauty of the nature, elevation,
very good.
refinement of thought.
Monali, thank you very much. Our aesthetic sense is that sense which appreciates beauty and nature. That's what we call aesthetic, and poetry is aesthetic.
Hussein Aziz कहता है appreciate nature and
Very good, you
We can also-
appreciate nature.
We can call it intellectual beauty.
Intellectual beauty, okay. It could be intellectual, natural, anything that appeals to you as beautiful is your aesthetic sense. Okay, the next one. Any volunteers?
Yes,
Poetry
I would
allows
like
you
to-
to play with language, sentence structure, to find new ways to communicate interesting and innovative language idea.
Is this Khalil talking?
Khalil.
Khalil Jatoi, beta, one suggestion for you is please take a deep breath and read it once more. And go slow, you don't have to rush through it.
Okay, ma'am. Poetry allows you to play with language, sentence structure, to find new ways to communicate interesting and innovative language idea.
This is much better when you listen to it again. So a teacher has to have clear pronunciation. If we don't have clear pronunciation, and if we don't open our teeth and mouth properly, we will not, maybe the student won't be able to understand our pronunciation. Khalil, good. And I feel you should practice more on reading, record it, re-listen, and you can improve your pronunciation. So poetry allows you to play with language, sentence structure, to find new ways to communicate interesting and innovative language ideas. Thank you very much, Khalil. Anybody
Listening
else?
to poetry, listening to poetry builds our listening skills.
Very good. Listening to poetry builds our listening skills. Monali, thank you very much. And you sure are a good teacher. You are coming out well with your pronunciation. So listening to poetry builds our listening skill. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that point? That why to teach poetry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 3 लोगों ने कहा yes.
Okay. Yes.
Promote active listening. कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं.
Okay. Promoting active listening. Very good. So when you listen to poetry, aajkal to there are a lot of ways and means in which you can listen to poetry. People of my age would still depend on our teacher to speak poetry or read poetry out to us. But today you can listen to poetry on maybe in the musical sense with the lyrics, whatever. So that's it. Right. Thank you very much. Yes, Shanaz, you want to say something?
Earlier, I wanted to read that part, but now I would like to do
Okay,
it.
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Poetry can be taught as a part of reading, writing, and listening skills for language development.
Very good, Chenas. Thank you very much. Very well read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
She's doing well, Chenas. Okay, now we are going to talk about different forms of poetry. Different forms of poetry. There is descriptive poetry. That is like, I can give you two examples right now with which you are also familiar, the Railway Carriage and the Daffodils. Narrative is Abu Ben Adam, and I don't know, Urdu mein Adam bolte hain, English mein it is still Adam. There's narrative, then there is reflective. Maulana Rumi is very popular and a lot of people read and quote him. So if you're reading Maulana Rumi, that is reflection of a lot of our sensitive emotions. And besides this, can you think of any other form of poetry? If we go back into time, like what would Shakespeare write? He wrote sonnets. There are epics, sonnets, and many more different forms of, yes?
Ballads, ma'am.
Ballad, right, there's ballad. So there are many different forms of poetry. Very good.
Thank you.
Now, what I want to do over here is I want to give you an example of how I would teach poetry. It takes a lot of work to match it with the visuals, but it will make definitely an impact on your students. If Rhea, you would like to give your opinion on how does it impact your student when you are teaching poetry with visuals? Or it could be anybody who else is teaching poetry with visuals.
Ma'am, we can use a number of things for making it a successful teaching. We can use kind of a smart screen. We can use a kind of lyrical sort of thing. And we can involve the students to sing with us, read with us, or repeat after us.
Yes.
So this kind of, with physical gestures and your involvement in the whole process will matter a lot.
Yes, okay. Any other suggestions on visuals and teaching poetry? Excuse me. This is one visual which you can see. And when you're looking at it, does it tell you a lot? Is it self-explanatory? Is it talking about a railway and a carriage? So that should what visual be like? Self-explanatory, where you understand. So this is a railway carriage, from a railway carriage. Now from a railway carriage, what does that mean?
अच्छा वो ये कह रहे हैं यहाँ पे शर्मिला कह रही है with the help of
Illustrations, they can connect well with the idea. Yeah.
time to remember long time visual का जो आपने सवाल पूछा
You got it, Shanila. I've just come across Shunila's comment, and I think I fully agree with you that with the help of illustration, they can connect well with the idea of the poem and tend to remember for a long time. That's true. That's very true. Okay, so this, I was talking to you about from a railway carriage. What is from a, what would you understand from a railway carriage? It would mean you're peeping out from a window. So as, have you had a journey before? And do you know what it is like to travel in a railway carriage? So from a railway carriage means what you're looking out from a railway, from a carriage. Faster than ferries, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches. See, when you're looking at the picture, it just makes it very clear कि what would a hedge be and what would a ditch be? So what I want to say here is also that you don't have to go back into translation a lot. Please try not to translate as far as possible. Use any methods. Try not to translate. Slowly, slowly, you'll build up the students' work or the students' ability to think in the language. When he will see, whilst traveling, he sees a hedge or a ditch. या बहुत से लोगों के घर में भी hedges लगी हुई हैं. So then at least he can associate visually with the hedge in his house or tell other people that this is a hedge or bridge. People living in Sindh and traveling back and forth have to cross this Sakhar bridge a lot. So when the child is going on the bridge, he can say this is a bridge, or his mind will connect this to this. And in his vocabulary, he has the word bridge and houses that he can see, hedges that he can see, and ditches that we see. In our country, ditches are very common, so that shouldn't be an issue even. Anybody else would like to read the next picture? And charging along like troops in a battle. And Yapi, when we are saying that, you're looking at the picture and can you see that charge? That same charge should be in your voice. And charging along like troops in a battle. Just please work on this and get these emotions into your voice. And believe me, your student will remember. All through the meadow, the horses and cattle. When you're talking about the meadow, it gives a peaceful feeling. So see that your voice shows that. All through the meadows, the horses and cattle. Now, please, it is up to you. Read the next one. And given that expression, that feeling, hurry up, we won't wait long.
Yeah, ma'am, may I?
Yes, sure, please.
Thank you. All of the sides of the hill and the plain.
Very good. All of the sides of the hill and the plain. Next. Hold it.
Fly as thick as driving rain.
Very good.
Is it okay?
Yes. What would you understand by driving rain?
Ma'am, it can be a continuous or fast rain going on.
Right.
Or
it's a continuous fast rain like tufan mein hoti hai. So is there anything you can see through that rain?
yeah, ma'am, glimpses of the things that come off and on the vision.
Okay. One of the things that you would regularly see through this rain would be lights in a distance.
Light. Yes, right.
Lights, yes. Come on, hurry up.
And ever again in the wink of an eye.
Okay, and ever again in a wink of an eye. What would in a wink of an eye mean?
Just like you blink the eye, you
Okay,
Within-
wink an eye, blink an eye. मतलब क्या होएगा इसका?
within a very short while. Ma'am,
Yes. In case if you're interrupted when you're talking, you can start again. Wink or blink के साथ another option is in the.
May I, ma'am?
Yes, sure.
Ma'am, wink and eye have to close, open, or both eyes quickly. To close and open one eye quickly is a
Okay.
hint. Hint are
Yes.
signals जो नहीं होते signals जो होते
हाँ
हैं.
हाँ बिल्कुल. और इसके
हाँ.
लिए एक और ऑप्शन है split second. In a split second.
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
Okay. Another option would be पलक झपक में. Right? Is there any?
वो changes of the scene in rapid way.
Okay, yes, the scene changing in rapid ways. लेकिन blink of an eye, wink of an eye, ये सब पलक झपक and okay, who will read this? Here is a child who clamors.
Here
and-
is a child.
Yes, very good.
Here
Here
is a
is,
child who clambers and scrambles.
okay. Can you understand the meaning of clamber and scrambles from this picture?
ma'am, it is like using your hands and feet together to move ahead.
You clamber. You must be having little children around you, and when they try to go up, just as soon as they learn to walk on their fours and they move, they are clambering and scrambling. And if we are lucky to have little hills or things around us on which they can clamber and scramble. All by himself and gathering brambles. What are brambles? Look at the picture and tell me the meaning of brambles.
Ma'am, kind of berries.
Oh yes, very good. Kind of berries.
Thank you.
Okay,
Gather blackberries.
okay, blackberries. There are blueberries, blackberries, many kinds of berries.
और कोई कहता है here मैं पढ़ देता हूँ.
हाँ.
Here a man admiring the lush greenery. Hussain Aziz says.
Okay, Hussain, very good. Man admiring lush greenery. So can you see the sensitivity of our emotions, of how we are perceiving beauty? I can answer it. How would you describe the mood or tone of the piece? Shahina has asked this question. How would you describe the mood or tone of the piece, of the whole poetry? I want suggestions on what do you think is the mood of the poetry? Mood. What would you say mood in Urdu?
Expression. Raya कहती है expression.
Mood means expression. Okay. How would you describe the mood or tone?
टोन को गाओ
Tone is our आवाज का उतार चढ़ाव जो है, the rise and fall, intonation, that is the tone of your of the piece. और इसमें जो rise and fall या tone है, what is it in the railway carriage? What is the tone?
अच्छा वो हुसैन अजीज कहता है मूड ऑफ द पोएट्री डिपेंड अपॉन द सिचुएशन और सर्कमस्टेंसेस हुसैन अजीज
The mood होता है ना पोएट्री का, उसकी इवेंट के हिसाब से होता है जैसा कुछ महसूस करता है जिन्हें देखना है डिस्क्राइब करता है तो मूड है उसका हैप्पीनेस. Okay, there are some answers I've got, and they feel that we would describe the mood in happiness, in excitement of travel, and in appreciation of beauty, according to Hassan? Hussain Aziz. Thank you very much for your suggestions. Let's get on to the next question that I have. What is it?
क्वेश्चन
What type of rhyme is being used? Okay, let's look at the next picture. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes. Now, this is a sadder tone because what is a tramp? What kind of a man would be a tramp? Or what kind of a person, I should say?
Kind of soldier, ma'am.
Sorry? Soldier?
A soldier? A soldier?
No. A tramp wouldn't be a soldier.
Okay.
Who would be a tramp? Anybody else? Any suggestions of who would be a tramp?
The one who is walking.
This man that you see in the picture is a tramp, yes?
Like the traveler, ma'am.
A traveling man?
Traveler?
Okay, okay. Tramp is an old-fashioned word which we don't use anymore. And a tramp is a homeless man. A homeless man. Can you see the mug in his hand? And I think he's made a gathadi of kapadas, which you can see on that bamboo wood that he's carrying on his shoulder. So he's got a mug in his hand and he's got this.
Can we call him name explorer or seeker or thought or discoverer?
Sorry, could you speak a little louder? Zahid, oh sorry, Khalil, could you please speak little louder?
Okay, then, can we call explorer or seeker or seeker or odyssey?
I got it. No, we can't call him a seeker or an explorer. Explorer and seekers are very well funded and they have a lot of money. A tramp is a poor, homeless man.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
Yes, please.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Can we call him
actually,
gypsy?
tramp is Sindhi
Can we call him gypsy?
a person who travels from place to place on foot in search of work.
Okay, very good.
Is like a beggar. Is like a beggar.
Okay, आजकल we call them a beggar. पहले इसको tramp बोलते थे. A man who's looking for work.
But they are also called gypsy.
Gypsy.
Can we call them gypsy?
In certain ways, yes, but otherwise no, because gypsies are people who move in groups. And gypsies move in search of water and food. He is more or less moving because he's homeless and he needs some job or whatever. Gypsies move for a different reason. Tramps, maybe I think the best understanding that we would get of a tramp is a beggar. Any more comments? Thank you very much. Anybody would like to read? And there is the green for stringing the daisies. By the picture, you can understand what is a daisy. And people who have visited in our country, places like Murray or Swat, or especially when we go during June, July, summer seasons, you see a lot of small children who are selling these daisies made into garlands and made into different jewelry. So daisies are flowers which we can find in our country in the cooler part of the countries. And here is a cart run away in the road. If we look at this cart, I think our students would be able to identify easily what is a cart. Lumping along with man and load. How would you describe lumping now?
Ma'am, unevenly running.
Okay.
The movement is not so even, like ups and downs.
Bilkul sahi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hussain, these are flower bracelets.
Yes, very good. Hussain, flower bracelets and flower garlands. Yeah, both are right. Good, thank you. And here is a mill and there is a river. Mills are not so common these days. For us, mills are huge, huge buildings which do these jobs. In the times of Stevenson, mills were like this. And here is a mill and there is a river. What does a mill do?
Ma'am, can you signify or can you express the techniques the writer has used in these poems, like figures of speech, those techniques used in the poetry to make it very expressive?
And that's a very long, difficult question. I could send you the techniques. Maybe I'll just note down and what's his name? Khalil? Khalil, beta, we have started conversations also, conversation classes also. And it's called the Conversation Forum, which we will be advertising soon. Please do join that, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. You will be an asset if you join there, and we'll let you know soon. So I've just noted down your question and I'll give you an answer later. Who would like to read this picture?
And here is a mill and there is a river.
Okay. And here is a mill and there is a river. Sorry, I asked you, what does a mill do? What does a mill do? Can you hear me, Shanaz?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is to grind corn or grain.
Very good. It is to grind flour to nahi kahenge, grains. Grain, right. It is to grind grains. Very good. And for a mill, you need water. These days in our country also, it's become a big stigma. Sara, wo jo water our industries use or the mills use, like making sugarcane and sugar, they use a lot of water. And now our problem is, where does all the drainage go? Where does all the drainage go? So this पहले जमाने में भी यही same technique थी कि वो मिल था, उसमें पानी की जरूरत होती थी, फिर उसका waste निकलता था. Right? Thank you. Now the next line in the poetry.
Each a glimpse and gone forever.
Each a glimpse and gone forever. Thank you very much. What's a glimpse? And what would a child understand by gone forever?
Ma'am, just like a flash of something.
A place of?
Just like the blinking of an eye, you see something. That comes before vision for a very short while.
Right, right. The glimpse
For
is,
seconds.
yes. Glimpse is very fast moving sight. And gone forever. What would it mean, gone forever?
Can we call the glimpse a perennial glimpse which lasts for longer?
What's he saying? What's he saying? Sorry, Khalil, please could you repeat your question?
Ma'am, can we call a glimpse perennial glimpse which lasts forever?
No, not forever is something different and glimpse is something different. Glimpse is a short view. क्या उसको उर्दू में बोलेंगे glimpse को जैसे झांकना होता है ना? I got a glimpse of him. What?
एक दफा बस नजर के सामने आया.
झलक, right. Thank you very much, झलक. जैसे I went out to Islamabad and I got a glimpse of Imran Khan. Can you think of another? Can see my colleagues are laughing. Can you think of another sentence with glimpse? किसी ने शाहरुख खान को glimpse किया हो या what are your favorite heroes you'd like to glimpse?
आपका सवाल वहां तक पहुंचने में 5 से 10 सेकंड लगते हैं.
जब
जब आप जुमला पूरा बोल लेते हैं ना, उसके बाद आपके पहला लफ्ज मेरे कान में आता है. क्या? नहीं चल रहा है आपको फ्री दिया बस.
Oh, okay. Now these are the activities.
We can call the glimpse reflections.
Reflection अक्स होएगा. अक्स shadow साया होएगा. Glimpse is एक जरा सी मिनट के लिए आप देख के चलें आगे.
वो सैन कहता है कि I see 1,000 flowers in one glimpse.
Oh, very good, Hussein. 1,000 flowers in a glimpse. Daffodils, if you were reading daffodils in a glimpse. Very good, very good. Look at all the associations you are making. So if in the same way, we bring this to class, how interesting it would become. Okay, activities to teaching poetry. Now, if you just look back, one activity was showing visuals. And I don't think you need to have the line on every visual. Maybe you don't need to. You can just read. Yeah, you have a recorded version. You can play that and show visuals. There are many ways you can do it, and there's a lot you can achieve, as I'm sure I was able to show you. So one of the activities of teaching poetry is find new words and their meaning. We've been through the visuals, we've seen the poetry, we've read the poetry. Now give the students some time to find new words. Maybe they underline all the new words in the poem. It's up to you how you want to work with it. Assign this for homework, or, you know, we have limited time for teaching, like some of you must be having 45 minutes, some have 50. So it all depends on you. If you have the time, you want to do it right there and then. If you're using physical dictionaries or are you using digital dictionaries, a lot of factors will come in there. If you want each student to pick up 2 words, I think you'll be able to cover the poetry. Then again, it depends on the number of students you have also. So teaching is not that easy. You'll have to figure things out for yourself. Then you draw visual of any one new word. There are some students jinki sensitivity is more towards art and illustration. और वो कुछ 2 लाइनें खींच के बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं. So that's also your choice. If you have any artist in class and you want to announce that, assign for homework a new word and tell them to draw करके लिया. And if you have time to do it there and then in class, give each student a word and ask them to draw that. Or what do you think about it? वो बना दो. So that illustration is also good. These are 2 activities you can do for teaching poetry. The other activity that you can do is relate the poem with personal experience. How many of you could relate from the railway carriage with personal experience?
Ma'am, I think that first experience going by a railway is the kind of child is so much amazed by this experience, because the way the poet has described the strange things, the visions coming and then disappearing in such speedy way. In childhood, we are quite unable to understand this phenomenon. So every child, I think, when he or she goes through the experience, he or she remembers it for the rest of his or her life. I remember I couldn't make it out how things are. If I just thought that the things were moving or I was.
Yes, that's so true. And that is quite an experience you have, whether you are moving or the things outside are moving. Yeah. Very good. Hannah. Very thoughtful. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Or we all have traveled, so personal experience, I'm sure everybody has by train. Yeah, bus bhi ho sakta hai. This kind of poetry will not attach itself to the aeroplane as such, because in an aeroplane we don't see anything. There are different things you can see in an aeroplane.
Yeah. We can see clouds, ma'am.
Oh yes, clouds you can see. You're so close to the
and
sky.
we have to look down to see at times, like up and down everywhere.
Yes, that's also good. Yes. And when
हुसैन अजीज जो है ना इसी को relate कर रहे हैं some other literature को some science से और दूसरी चीजों से. वो कहते हैं कि question can be asked from students that how insight disappear in second and how many sides have in their mind.
Who is this person?
Hussein.
Hussein, very good idea. Thank you very much. Good techniques you are putting forth. Do you think all that we are talking about, we can use it in class? Just think about this. You people have been very proactive and given a lot of good ideas on how to make poetry teaching better. And when you're going to relate the railway carriage with your personal experience, then you will be able to recall the journey also. Thank you very much. Very good. Now, activities to teaching poetry is, one is pre-reading. Now, I need ideas on how would you do pre-reading. Steps that would lead to pre-reading. Is anybody answering this? How do we get to pre-reading? Okay, pre-reading is you brainstorm. Maybe हम visuals दिखाएं पहले, and we get the students to, yes, yes, please, I'm listening. Okay, you know, brainstorming is, you've seen the word cattle. Is somebody talking to me?
To check students' prior knowledge. I'm brainstorming to check
Yes.
students' prior knowledge.
Okay, good. To check students' knowledge and to see how closer you can bring them to the topic of what you want to teach. The next step would be, while reading, identify new words, find meanings, and draw the words. This is an activity which you have to do while you're reading the poetry. First time, just read it with intonation and tone. Second time, when you read it around, then you bring in, ask them to underline new words they don't understand. Then with visuals, explain the new words, meanings, and maybe if illustrations possible. Then the last is post-reading. That's when you write your experience related to what's in the poetry. If you have time, your 45 or 50 minutes are over, then for the next day, this activity, or the next time, whenever you come to take the poetry class, this activity should be continued. And that is that students should be asked to read the poem in groups and discuss the poet's experiences. That's when you get people talking about the poet's experiences. First, they have written about their own experiences. They're talking about their own. Now they should just sort of visualize what would be the poet's experience. Was he also a child traveling in a train? Did he see all these things? Let the child tell you what the poet is thinking. So that promotes good discussion amongst our students. And the next step would be help students write the central idea and present it. I think by this stage up, central idea to bahut easy ho gaya hoga to understand what the poet is trying to say and what he wants to do. Thank you. Any suggestions? Anybody wants to say anything?
Ma'am, I have two things in mind. I want to have a certificate of attending this webinar. So can I have somehow?
अभी थोड़ी देर बाद एक लिंक हम शेयर करेंगे. अगर आप वो लिंक फिल करेंगे तो आपको डेफिनेटली सर्टिफिकेट मिलेगा.
Okay, thank you very much. And Yeah. And can I have the recording of today's?
ये रिकॉर्डिंग जो
lecture?
है SIPD राशिदाबाद के YouTube चैनल पे अवेलेबल होती है, लेकिन इसकी जो रिकॉर्डिंग है वो बुध तक आपको अवेलेबल होगी, वेडनेसडे तक.
Wow. So how could I get? How could I get to know about?
ये हम आपको ईमेल भी कर देंगे, और दूसरा ये कि आप हमारा SIPD राशिदाबाद के नाम से हमारा चैनल है YouTube पे, आप उसको सब्सक्राइब कर लें. हमारे जितने भी
This is
वेबिनार कंडक्ट हुए हैं वो सब उसके अंदर मौजूद हैं, और पावर पॉइंट की लिंक भी मौजूद है.
Okay. This is SIPD.
SIPD राशिदाबाद में टाइप कर देता हूँ चैट बॉक्स पे.
Okay, thank
SIPD
you very much.
means Sargodian Institute of Professional Development. We are
Thank
in
you, ma'am.
Rashidabad, that is Tanno Allah Yar.
Ma'am Marshall, can you please, Jennifer Marshall, can you please tell us that when you are going to have pronunciation class or such things on a voluntary basis? Thank
जी,
you.
ये अभी हम प्लान कर रहे हैं उसकी प्रोसेसेस पे, तो इंशाल्लाह हम इसका एड वगैरह ना हम आपको ईमेल करेंगे, तो आप ज्वाइन कर लीजिएगा, लेकिन ये 10 दिन से ज्यादा नहीं लेगा. इंशाल्लाह विद इन 10 डेज हम शुरू करने वाले हैं. मैं सही कह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि आपने करना है ना, इसलिए मैं कर
Yes, yes, Godspeed, and God willing, we should start within 10 days. And we will let you know the rules and regulations for joining the conversation forum and how we are going to, work it out. See, on this thing, it's going to be difficult online. Because I wouldn't know when somebody is talking. So we'll put in a little icons where you can.
Excuse me, I remind you, your topic was spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings by William Wordsworth. So you didn't talk a bit about this. Can you please tell me about William Wordsworth's philosophy?
विलियम वर्ड्सवर्थ के बारे में कुछ जानना
Oh,
चाहते हैं अगर आपको
William Wordsworth. Yes, beta, you can read up on William Wordsworth. Beautiful poetry he writes. And you can talk, and he's a poet of nature. He writes more about nature.
No, sorry, ma'am. Your topic was about William Wordsworth's spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. So it was the topic, I think that.
Beta, my title was different. It had nothing to do with William Wordsworth. My title was for R.L. Stevenson, The Railway Carriage.
Or teaching of poetry.
And teaching of poetry, yeah. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't teach Wordsworth. Thank you very much. It was a very proactive group and I really enjoyed it. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I did. And I wouldn't like to keep you more waiting because people are busy and have things to do. And of course, some do get tired too. Thank you. If you have any more queries, please, you can write us an email. Your certificates will be automatically given to you as soon as you fill out our form.